Hey, what's going on, guys? So I got a lure review for this week. This is going to be on the Jackall Bling. This is a flat-sided shallow diving crankbait. As a side note, this will be one of 3 reviews this week, and they're all going to be on shallow diving flat-sided crankbaits. So we're also going to do the Spro Little John as far as the shallow diving Little John, and then we're also going to do the Kelly J KJ Flat from Lucky Craft. You're going to see a lot of similarities between these baits and a lot of the same description and characteristics between the baits because they're all pretty similar baits. They have some minor differences, and I'll try to explain them the best that I can. You go to Jackall's website, it looks like they only have one size in the Bling. It's the 55. It has a length of 2.2 inches, has a weight of 3/8 of an ounce. I've also seen the bait listed at 5/16 of an ounce, which is just a 1/16 of an ounce lighter than 3/8, obviously. So, and I think it's actually closer to 5/16 than it is to 3/8. It has a diving depth of approximately 4 feet, and it's a floating style crankbait. Now, the characteristics of the bait, as far as the diving angle, you can see the bait has a lip that kind of shoots off the bait almost a lot straighter than some of the other shallower diving crankbaits. Like, I'm going to compare it to the Jackall Aska, their square bow crankbait, and you guys can see the diving angle of that bill, where the Aska is probably going to dive to about 2 to 3 feet. I don't know what they listed at. In fact, I'll go, let's see. Let's see, there it is. Aska 60. And the Aska 60 has a depth of 4 feet. So the point is that I don't think that these baits dive at the same depth. As far as I think that this one's probably going to dive a little bit shallower than this one. But the point is you look at that diving angle on that bill. That's just going to make a difference also in how it behaves in the water as far as how deep it dives, and also some of the wobbling characteristics of it. More the flat-sided nature of the Bling is probably going to affect the wobbling or the swimming characteristics of the bait more than the bill is. But the point is that these are different baits, but they're both shallow diving crankbaits. One is more of a power fishing style crankbait, and the other one is more of like a finesse, finicky, cold water style of crankbait. You can catch fish. You can catch fish in warm water and power fishing techniques with this one too, and you can catch fish in cold water, finicky style fish with this one too. I've done them both. But I think for its design and intended purpose, that's kind of where this one sits, is kind of like in the cold water, finicky fish style game, light cover. I wouldn't be throwing this bait in the heaviest to cover personally. It doesn't have the same characteristics of a square bow crankbait. It does have more of a squared lip to it as far as the corners, but you can see it's more rounded, and it doesn't wobble as much, and it also doesn't have that steep angle to kind of protect the hooks from behind it as well. So it's just going to behave differently in the water. Now, the bait does have kind of like the same swimming, or some people might call it a wobbling action. I think that the wobble, saying the word wobble is kind of misleading, because I've heard people say that this thing behaves kind of like a lipless crankbait, where it kind of like rocks from side to side, where a lipless crankbait kind of, it'll rock like this from side to side, and a lipless crankbait really doesn't swim like this hardly at all. But the point that I'm trying to make is that this crankbait behaves like a traditional crankbait. It's just a lot more subtle, where it does have a swimming action. Look at it from the top view. It does have a swimming action like this, but where a square bow crankbait will run out here like this on its retrieve, a flat-sided crankbait will run kind of like this on its retrieve. And so it's still gonna have that same swimming or wobbling action, if you will, but it's gonna be a lot more subtle. So, and as far as the bait, all the baits seem to share the same characteristic, that obviously they're all flat-sided crankbaits. By happenstance, they all have all three of them have the fiberglass circuit board lip, but they're all really light and really small little crankbaits. Some people might even opt to throw these baits on spinning gear. I'm still going to throw them on a 4-power casting rod, a crankbait rod, like the 724 that I tend to use a lot more for these small style crankbaits. As far as the Jackall bait, you can see that It's a it's very similar to a lot of the other Jackall baits. It has a lot of the same features that you've come to know from a Jackall bait. You can obviously see that this is SG Threadfin Shad, and that's just a very cool looking color. And they seem to do this color very uniquely. So it has really nice black nickel plated hooks on it. You have the black nickel plated split ring. The difference in this bait that over some of the other Jackall crankbaits is this one has painted on eyes, where the other ones have three-dimensional holographic eyes, like this Jackall Aska, and then this one has the painted on eyes. So let's see, where else are we going? This one is the only bait of the 3 baits that I mentioned that actually has a rattle to it. This one also has a weight transfer system. You can see you can kind of see there's 2 ballast balls. There's one that's fixed here, and then this one here kind of moves back towards the rear. I don't know if it's magnetized up here or not, but it does seem to want to stay up here. So when you cast, it's going to move to the rear, and it's going to help kind of carry this bait out there a little ways. And then when it starts to dive down, you can see that it just wants to sit down here below. It does kind of offer a little bit of rocking inside of it, but again, playing back into that whole finesse game, or the whole subtle crankbait fishing technique, that the rattle in this one is very, very subtle sounding and kind of light. And it's probably coming up a little bit louder on the video, but the point is that it's a very subtle crankbait rattle, where the other ones don't even have rattles at all. This bait also has a very slow, and as the other 2 crankbaits also have this as well, this has a very slow rise to it. It's a very slow float. Another thing playing into the whole finesse, slow fishing style nature of these finesse style crankbaits, as I call them. So it has that really nice slow fall to them. But I didn't find this bait to cast exceptionally well. I felt like the bait, for its size, it casted pretty decently for its size. But the point is that you're not gonna win any records by casting distance with this bait. I mean, you'll probably get it out there. If I saw somebody get this bait out there 100 feet, I'd be pretty surprised. But I think average for me, maybe 70 feet. Just kind of underhand roll cast to help with the overruns and the backlashes, because it is a light crankbait, and casting it on casting gear can be a bear. But again, kind of like what I've said in the past with the squirrel bow crankbaits, you can cast these in a more accurate fashion, where you're doing underhand roll casts and casting them to certain points and certain areas that you're trying to key in on. But you can also use it as a search bait too. You're just not going to be able to cover as much water as you might like as like a DD22 or something like that. You're not gonna be able to do that with this style bait. It does, as far as the rattle is concerned, it has these 3 plastic balls that sit up here in this channel up here. You can't really see it in this bait, but they're there, and that's kind of that plasticky sound that you're hearing in there. So again, the bait doesn't behave like a lipless crankbait. Some people say that it behaves like a lipless crankbait. I suppose it behaves like a lipless crankbait in the respect that it has a very subtle action to it, but it doesn't vibrate like a lipless crankbait does. Not in my experience, at least. It still swims like a traditional crankbait does, like a square bowl crankbait or something like that. It's just a lot more subtle. So as far as the colors are concerned, we go to Tackle Warehouse. Like I said, this is SG Threadfin Shad. I pretty much have this color in every bait that Jackall makes. It's probably my favorite color that they have. Whether or not it's effective, I just really like the color a lot. You can see it says Bling 55 on the top. It's got kind of like a light blue scale pattern on the back. It's got that Chartreuse line, black shad dot, kind of like a silver side to it. It's kind of transparent, but not really. On the bottom, it's more transparent with kind of like a little flash of white on the bottom. So just a really good shad style bait when the fish are being finicky, but keying in on some shad. This is a very, very good bait. This is SG Threadfin. The next lure we have here is called Chartreuse Shad. Everybody knows the Chartreuse Shad. It's just a little bit different though. It's got a little bit more blue, kind of like a pearl to it. It has some kind of color shifting to it, but not really. It gets a little bit darker towards the front here. Same painted eyes that you see on the other one. Same kind of scale pattern here on the corner, shad line there, and just an overall white body there. So, and it's an opaque bait too. So, I want to, before I forget to mention this, as far as these fiberglass bills are concerned, I think that for me the jury's still out on whether or not that they're. Some people say that they're very robust and they're gonna last a lot longer than some of the plastic ones that you'll find on like the LC 1.5. But the point is that I don't think that it's necessarily any stronger. They probably put it on here to make it behave just slightly different in the water. But even then, I don't think it behaves drastically different over another flat-sided crankbait that has a plastic bill to it. So that's just my 2 cents about it. So anyway, there's Chartreuse shad. Go and show you guys my measurement here. From the rear ring to the front of the nose of the bait, it's 2 1/4 inches, and then to the bill, it's about 2 3/4 inches. So you can see 2 3/4 there, and then you can see 2 1/4 there from the rear split ring to the bill. So just a really small little crankbait, but a really nice little crankbait. It definitely has its place in my tackle box. You guys know that I really like the Jackall lures. I think that they really do it right, and this crankbait is a really neat crankbait. It's probably not going to see a ton of time on the water for me, but when you want that crankbait, or when those fish are keying in on like a shad in shallow water, or they're in shallow water, this is going to be a really, really nice crankbait. So if you guys like the video, please hit the like button down there in the lower left corner. Really appreciate that, and stay tuned for the Spro Little John and the Lucky Craft KJ flat crankbaits that I'm going to be reviewing here next. Thanks a lot, guys.